The morning of April 23rd was a rapturous moment for the country as the first two of the four CRJ Bombardier aircrafts for the revival of Uganda Airlines touched the ground at NTV Airport. But as government relishes the moment, the spectre of the collapsed national carrier hangs over the future of the new airline, which will find the skies volatile in a topsy-turvy industry. First established by former President Idi Amin in 1977 after the collapse of the East African Community, Uganda Airlines was liquidated in May 2001 as it was saddled by heavy debts, which stood to a staggering 21 billion shillings. The liquidation rankled a number of stakeholders who blamed government for deliberately running down the airline. Liquidation of the airline was among the three options at hand. The other options were either to sell it or place it under receivership as a going concern and later recapitalize it to give it a new lease of life. Manzi Tumuweni, who was the State Minister of Finance in charge of privatization at the time, told NTV that the three options were not looked at analytically and there were a lot of vested interests to bury the airline.
People were not looking at it from the infrastructure point of view as the only way to create economic development. People tended to look at economic success per se as an entity of its own. Spending on politics is expensive. But if you spend on politics in order to create good governance, is good because productivity, production, investment will come up. And that's how things are rated. And I tried to explain this and it didn't work. So I said, okay, you have three options. Sell South Africans who want to buy it cheap and even buy the name and are not paying us any money, basically, because we have losses only, we have liabilities, or liquidate and just destroy it, or revamp it and spend money on it, make losses, but help the business community to export by taking goods by air, and to import by bringing goods from there. And I even had a proposal that when they're exporting, charge half price, so that the exports are cheaper on the other side, and you recover the money from imports where you charge higher, and we reduce imports. That is administrative discrimination in economics.
As Uganda Airlines writhed in its death throes, government officials believed that it should be allowed to die and privatization as the magic wand would resurrect it. Yet it seems the authors of this obituary had little regard for what Amin had built. With the demise of the East African Airways, which Uganda jointly operated with Kenya and Tanzania, on May 17, 1976, Amin decreed the establishment of Uganda Airlines Corporation. The Uganda Airlines Corporation was as a result of a merger of Uganda Aviation Service Limited and Uganda Air Limited as a wholly owned public company. The establishment of Uganda Airlines Corporation was followed by acquisition of several aircrafts, which included two Boeing 707s, a Lockheed C-130 transport plane, and a variety of small aircrafts. The smaller aircrafts were specifically used for flights around the country from Entebbe to Jinja, Kivimba, Arua, Kasese, and other places. Our available records indicate that the Uganda Airlines Corporation was started with an initial capital of Uganda shillings 500 million, the equivalent of 932 billion shillings in today's currency. Amin did not live long enough to see much of the airline's operations blossom as he was ousted a year and a half later, but regardless, it remained a national pride in succeeding years even through turbulent economic times until it collapsed. Rummaging through the airline's history, buried in the heap of scripts, perhaps lie answers to what happened to the airline before it collapsed. According to Jackson Jirua, who joined Uganda Airlines Corporation in 1981 and would later rise through the ranks to becoming the company's commercial manager, Uganda Airlines had managed to get its footing as a good brand.
From the commercial point of view, we had a good product, all right? And because we had already built that product. And to give it a point, we had already established a good traffic to Dubai. We were already leading on the Nairobi route. And I think by then we were the only one operating to Kigali. And also we had domestic routes, which were generating good revenue. So the product was selling, but the only challenge I found was the aircraft. We could not do long run. You see, our major routes, our traditional routes, are the London route. We didn't have a long haul. After we lost the Boeing, one aircraft, another one was seized somewhere. We did not have a long route, a long haul traffic because we didn't have any aircraft to do the long haul. And long haul was where we could generate a lot of revenue. And if you look carefully, with the reputation Uganda has built, Entebbe was beginning to become a hub.
Juroa says the airline began experiencing problems in the mid-1980s when mismanagement set in. Then came the crash of its Boeing 707, used for long-haul flights in raw metal in 1988, and finally the privatization of its lucrative ground handling service.
Much as the ground handling is the cash cow of the organization, of the airline, but the money which was being generated from ground handling was used on the passenger side, because the passenger side was making losses. And I think that was not right, because they should have, you see, the major reason why airlines collapse are two: maintenance costs and the passenger costs.
At that time, in the early 1990s, the winds of privatization at the behest of the Washington Consensus led by the World Bank and IMF were sweeping across the country. The Uganda Airlines Corporation was among a dozen other parastatals which were dismantled in the privatization wave. Amidst the uproar of the privatization mess, Parliament in August 1999 sanctioned a select committee to investigate the privatization of select parastatals, which had caused an outcry in the country. On November 2, 1999, the Select Committee, chaired by former Kumi MP, the late Aiso Amongole, tabled its report before Parliament. Parliament heard that on November 23, 1993, the Civil Aviation Authority had invited inquiries in a public notice. The services listed included, among others, aircraft cargo, passenger handling, which were being provided by Uganda Airlines Corporation. The committee report revealed that at the times of privatizing Uganda Airlines Corporation, there was almost nothing left to sell apart from 2 old planes. The committee report indicated, I quote, most often, members well placed in both the NRM regime and in past regimes were using the Uganda Airlines Corporation. They used it for their private errands without paying for the planes. The parliamentary committee also detailed that Uganda Airlines routes had been sold off by the then Minister of Works and Transport and Communication, Kirunda Chivejinja, without consulting the relevant authorities. Tumobwine told NTV that the sale of Uganda Airlines Corporation raised eyebrows.
Interests are not easy to calculate, easy to know, easy to detect until they happen. There could be somebody who wanted to benefit from us and encouraged us to do what we are doing. But what I know for sure, structural adjustment 1, 2, and 3, we are looking at how we can restructure the economy and make it better and make it more productive. And the guiding principle was, which I also believe in, was that government should get out of productive sector and go back to infrastructural sector, provide the environment that makes the ordinary people produce. However, I think where we went wrong was to try, and I think we brought it up in the committee in finance because I was chairman of finance committee before then, to sell 140 enterprises at the same time to Uganda, in Uganda, was a mess. 1, they were not very profitable. 2, they were too many. 3, our people didn't have the capacity to buy them. So whom were you going to sell them? And then we had a problem, I think, I don't know why, of being able to trim them and then make them productive.
The committee report also pointed out that there was a few but politically powerful clique that sacrificed citizens' interests to manipulate and take advantage of the privatization process. Among those adversely mentioned in the committee report were General Salim Saleh, the president's brother, and Sam Kutesa, who's currently the foreign affairs minister. The parliamentary committee questioned how Effort, a company owned by General Salim Saleh and an Israeli national, Hezi Bezalel, and another company called Kembe Investments Limited, owned by William Biarhanga and Charles Mbiria, were part of the consortium that took over Uganda Airlines Corporation in-flight catering services without fair competition. The probe discovered, however, that the owners of Kembe Investments Limited had sold 999 shares of their company to Saleh's Effort, and the remaining 1 share was sold to another company called Mastwin Corporation Limited. William Biarhanga is currently the Attorney General. The committee revealed that General Saleh's company, later in partnership with Global Airlinks company owned by the now Foreign Affairs Minister Sam Kutesa, took over Uganda Airlines ground handling operations. Kutesa, who was the Finance State Minister for Planning and Investment at the time, in his earlier address to Parliament in December 1998, denied any wrongdoing. In his address to Parliament, he said, I quote, "I am both chairman of NHAS and also Minister of State for Finance. There may be a feeling that these two positions may constitute or would probably constitute a conflict of interest. In my opinion, I have regarded NHAS as a private limited liability company, and I have regarded it so, notwithstanding that Uganda Airlines was a 50% shareholder. My view was that it was an investment where a company called Uganda Airlines Corporation invested its funds just like my company invested. And I thought, in my view, there would be no conflict of interest because I believe honorable members here chair companies or are directors in companies but sometimes do business with government." On May 5, 1999, Kutesa was censured by Parliament over abuse of office and influence peddling in the privatization process. Former Bugabala South MP Proscovia Salam Musumba, who was a member of the committee that probed the privatization of Uganda Airlines Corporation and other parastatals in the 6th Parliament, said the process had more to do with whitewashing the legacy of former presidents Amin and Obote.
But the thinking then was break down everything that will give Obote and Amin, the past regimes, any legacy. It was breaking a legacy. It was unpacking Uganda and beginning a new narrative of Uganda. And their effort was really to begin a new country, a new citation under themselves, a new Uganda, without anything of the past leaders, as they were called, the swine. So for me, it had more political intentions than economic intentions or development policy intentions. No. They wanted to loot the country, share it up, and flee.
Musumba also recounted the death of Davis Mugizi, the former Uganda Airlines Corporation Commercial Services Manager, who provided valuable information to the committee in the mismanagement of the airlines.
And pleaded with the committee and said, guys, I'm going to be killed. The guy pleaded, the guy came crying, said, I'm going to be killed. I'm going to be killed for what I have told you. And I'm doing it as a citizen. It's my duty as a citizen to bring to your knowledge what is happening, what is going to finally run down an airline that belongs to us all. And indeed, Mugizi was killed one Saturday morning in Namungona. We heard on the news that Mugizi had been murdered. And like all the murders you see today, his death is unaccounted for, unexamined. It's like the death of a cockroach or a rat. And up till today, I feel like there's blood on our hands. There's blood on our hands as leaders, and especially as that parliament.
5 Sudanese nationals were later arrested in connection with Mugizi's murder and charged in the High Court. The suspects were, however, freed in 2003, rearrested and later freed. Barely a year after Mugizi's death in 2000, Uganda Airlines wound up its operation only to be revived 18 years later, 13 days ago. President Museveni spoke candidly about the collapse of the national carrier.
I was among the undertakers who buried the old airline. They said, umutafude mumzike. But here I am now among the midwives delivering the new baby. Why do I think this new baby will not die?
New things usually create excitement, and the revival of the Uganda Airlines is as such. But beyond the hoopla, it remains to be seen whether the ghosts from their past will not return to haunt the new airline.